Welcome back to the You Can Too podcast. On today's show, we have Cole Hastings on the show. Cole is a YouTuber, entrepreneur, and author, actually. He's been in the self-improvement and psychology space for over 5 years and now over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is insane to see from over 3 years and only getting to 1,000 subscribers, man. I want to start there a little bit. How were you able to continue moving on when I feel a lot of people would have completely quit after the first year, let alone 3?
Well, there's a couple things. I think, firstly, something in me just knew one day I would make it with YouTube. I don't know what that voice was. You can call it intuition. You can call it divine guidance. I don't know. I'm not a firm believer in either of those things, but something just said, if I keep doing this, if I keep making videos, it's going to work out one day. Eventually, if I consistently do something for long enough, I'm going to get good enough at it to the point where I stand out and attract enough people to the point where it can become a really big thing. The other thing was I just really enjoyed what I was doing. I couldn't see myself really wanting to do anything else as much as I wanted to do YouTube. And so it wasn't about, well, I'm sure it was about getting to a certain level, to a certain place, a certain amount of subscribers at one point. But really, the process of learning about filming, editing, I love cinematography, like actual filmmaking, all of that was so fun to me. And so the fact that it was taking so long didn't really deter me that much. And so I just kept going, enjoying the process.
Yeah. Your storytelling ability is something that I admire a lot in you and in your videos. Like, the storytelling ability is insane. That's something that's definitely come through just continuously posting for a long amount of time. Do you feel like the cup stacking in the early days, like that obsession, had any impact on your obsession for YouTube and just like relentlessly, continuously moving forward?
I think that since I've been young, I've felt inadequate to some extent. And I've always wanted to prove that I am worth something to people. Yeah. And that was a big motivator for me to get better at the start of improving myself in several different ways, one of which being making YouTube videos and one of which being cup stacking. But I'm not sure if cup stacking bled into that obsession type mindset bled into YouTube, but perhaps it did, because that was really just like a passionate thing I was doing. It was just it was fun to see the progress, the immediate progress in it. The fact that, you with cup stacking, you have this mat and this timer where, I don't know if you've ever seen it. You hold both your hands down on the timer, and then once you let go, it starts going. And so once you're done stacking all the cups, you immediately put it back down. There's immediate feedback there for you to see if you did better or worse. And so you kind of get obsessed with those numbers and constantly getting them lower and lower. And YouTube's kind of the same way, I guess, where you're getting obsessed with numbers and views and how to make people want to click more and watch longer. So yeah, I guess those things could tie together.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that with the numbers, it definitely makes a lot more sense. I feel, especially in the space of whether it's content creation, YouTube, whatever it may be, it's really difficult to, especially when you come from a place of inadequacy. Like, we always have that I'm not good enough paradigm that everyone sees the world through to begin with. So adding on a layer of metrics that are like essentially your idea of what success looks like, it's really hard to detach from that. What has your relationship been? I mean, maneuvering and managing that relationship along your journey?
With societal expectations of what it means to be successful? Is that kind of what you're asking me?
I think even more so in the sense of like being able to detach your quote unquote success or numbers with your self-image or self-worth.
Yes, that's still difficult to this day, I think.
Sure.
When a video doesn't do well on YouTube and it gets closer to 10 out of 10 than 1 out of 10, yeah, it definitely affects my mental health. But I would say not as much anymore. I've been trying to be indifferent towards that ranking system, but I really care about it so much. And I guess that's still a work in progress, but I feel like the reason I've gotten better at it, I haven't contemplated that too much, but I guess I just think to myself, what's really the goal here with my content? Is it to get the most amount of views, which I think it was at one point, and still, I mean, I would like to get the most amount of views, of course. Or is it to make the biggest impact on someone and make someone feel something and make something that I really enjoy making? And I would like to transition more to the latter there, because it's much more fulfilling that way, and it doesn't make me stress the fuck out all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I'd say is where I'm trying to move towards is, you know, you can make a video that gets 1 million views, but its impact on people is like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. And it's just like a viral type of video.
Yeah.
But you could also make a video that gets 10,000 views, but every single person that watches it like feels it to their core, and it's really impacted them and makes them want to do something. And along with that, I feel like the videos I am super passionate about the most are the same videos that make the biggest impact, I would say, usually, because I'm really writing this script and making this video out of pure love and passion. And I think people can feel that when you make that sort of content. And so it's been easier lately to do that, because I'm just getting more into that mindset. But also, I honestly, like, we're being honest here. Once you get to that certain level where I'm at like 500,000 subscribers, the views are good. Like, it's like I'm at a place where I can be comfortable with financially and everything. It does make it easier once you're already at a certain level of success.
Of course. I mean, you worked your ass off to get to that point. So, I mean, it makes sense that you're at a point right now where, like, you can still stress about it, because there's always going to be that initial stress, because it's still like, I feel like creating is like your baby. Whatever you create is like, that's something you care so much about throughout that journey. I mean, like, I'm curious for you, throughout creating for so long, like, what has creating online taught you about yourself?
That's a great question. I think that script writing in particular for YouTube has been one of the most impactful things for my self-awareness, because with my scripts on YouTube, I don't really know what I'm going to write when I start to pick a topic and then just write the first few sentences. Right. It's basically just me working through usually a past problem or a present problem.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring it out as I go with the script. And so I'll come to conclusions and solutions that I actually don't even know I'm going to write about. Like, just truthfully, a lot of my scripts are like that, where I'm just like, let's just see where this goes. And that strategy has never failed me. And I always seem to figure out something about myself through that. And so script writing itself is a really good self-awareness practice, especially if you're writing stories about your past or just self-improvement in general, I think is a good thing to write about. Yeah. But also, of course, comments are really beneficial. Constructive criticism comments, at least, or even really mean comments. I think it taught me a lot about having more humility and realizing that I'm wrong quite a lot of the time. I just know that now. Yeah. I try to produce the best, most objective, coherent content I can, but I definitely don't get it right, and I don't get it right all the time. And there's a lot of people who my content doesn't apply to and wouldn't really have much of an impact on. And that's going to be the case with any content you make. You don't want to try to appeal to everyone, in fact, because if you appeal to everyone, no one's going to like you. So I think it's made me more open-minded to other people's perspectives as well. And that's taught me humility. So a lot of things.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question to reflect on, because when you're creating so much, like, it's almost like you said, it's like when you're script writing, it's like a journal in some capacity, and you're working through a problem that you used to go through, and maybe you took a different perspective on it that people can take value from. And like you said, right, you're at a point right now I think you're like 530 something thousand subscribers, which is insane. Like, massive congrats to you.
Thank you.
Now that you're at that point and you're at that position financially, you're set. Like, what is the where are you going towards now? Like, what's the definition of success now?
Right. I think my definition of success has been the same for a while, even before I got to this level. The definition of success, and I actually kind of touched upon this in the newsletter I just released today, is I think anyone who is in the process of becoming the person they want to be is successful.
Yeah.
I think if you are like I've said this in videos, if you're in the process, you've made it. I don't care how far you get in your craft, whatever number you get to, whatever society says, at this point, you're successful. It's like, if you are in the process of becoming something or someone that you want to become, I think you've made it, because at that point you're enjoying most of your days, and that higher purpose, whatever you want to call it, will get you even through your darkest days, because you know that those dark days are part of the process of becoming to make you a more evolved version of yourself. So that's my definition of success. I know it's easy for me to say, right, because I'm already at a level of success most people want to be at. But really, if you employ that mindset early on, before you're even conventionally successful, yes, exactly. Conventionally successful, then you'll probably get to that point anyway, just as a byproduct.
It's so true. I think are aligned in a lot of ways. I find my definition of success is merely acting. Like, if I'm acting, I'm winning. And then that's going to lead to the results that we're all looking for, right? I feel like it's also through that paradigm. Like, you probably went through this phase. I think a lot of people do when they get into self-improvement. It's like, I get into this place, and then if I get some knowledge, I can fix that problem. And then I get that knowledge from that book, then I can fix that problem. And you feel like there's like this, it's a constant evolution of fixing yourself almost, because we're this idea of we're not enough. I'm curious for you, in the space for so long, especially like diving even deeper into it with making so many videos, like really storytelling about it. What do you feel is the biggest misconception that people have about self-improvement?
Well, I think what you were saying there kind of touched on it, is this idea of I need to be fixed. Is a lot of people go into self-improvement with the mindset of I need to do something to be fixed or to be complete or whole. And once I do the self-improvement things, then I'll be there. But a lot of these problems are much deeper than that, that come from, a lot of programming throughout society, where people have told you you're not good enough and constantly beat you up. And so you beat yourself up so much. And so self-improvement can just become another way for you to reinforce those beliefs, even sometimes those negative beliefs, because if you're not seeing the results you want from it, and everyone's telling you in the self-improvement bubble, like, you should be seeing all these things already, like, these are the things you need to do. And if you're not completely applying them fully, it just starts to reinforce those beliefs that you're not good enough. So for some people, self-improvement is not the solution to fix them. Your solution might be just to first, and this is what everybody should do, honestly, is to first just, no matter where you are in life, just give yourself love and be okay with who you are right now. You cannot change yourself until you accept yourself right now.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I feel like, and this is the whole like overview of this podcast, I feel like life's a lot more about unlearning than it is learning. It's like unlearning this idea, these beliefs, these concepts, these paradigms that we live through. And it hurts us a lot. And especially like in the beginning phases of your YouTube channel, when there was so many societal concepts and ideas that, what are you doing? Like, I definitely went through the same position. I'm curious for you, like, what did that look like, and how were you able to continue pushing past that? Like, where did your delusional optimism come from?
So what you mean, I'm trying to fully understand what you mean is, could you repeat that, rephrase that?
So when you were starting YouTube and there was a lot of, people getting roasted when you initially started, like stepping to YouTube, like how were you able to continue down that path regardless of societal misconceptions about what they thought was possible?
Right. Because a lot of people were roasting me. A lot of parents saying, what are you doing? What is this going to turn into?
Exactly.
You can't be a YouTuber. Silencing that noise is tough. I think we all want to be accepted to some extent. It's just biologically ingrained into us as a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And so, you do have to be, I like what you said there, because that's one of my favorite phrases, is delusionally optimistic is what you have to be. You have to see something that no one else can see and kind of just hold it in your mind and know that if you continue working towards it, you'll probably get there one day if you're just consistent enough. I think for me, writing down things that I'm grateful for and affirming that I was going to do those things and constantly visualizing them helped me a lot too. And the mindset of all of these people who are roasting me, who are making fun of me, it's like, would they have the balls to do this themselves? Would they decide to go off the usual path and make YouTube videos or do whatever they want to actually do with their life, even if they will get heavily judged for it? And the answer is usually no for those people, because anyone who's got the balls to do that and who is delusionally optimistic is not spending their time putting other people down because of what they're doing.
Yeah, that I feel like cringing is just someone trying to fill a void within themselves that they're not able to look at. Almost, it's like that shadow work that you talk about. What has shadow work? What kind of role has shadow work played in your ability to overcome some trauma and beliefs about yourself that maybe weren't serving you?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of negative things about myself I couldn't come to accept. Just having an ego of some sort, I went through a very spiritual Eastern philosophy, heavy Eastern religion phase where I was taking in a lot of Taoism and Buddhism and these things that tell us that the ego doesn't exist. And I'm well aware that it doesn't, and that I'm much more than this physical bag of skin. But it's just, in Western society, it's just not super beneficial to get rid of your ego completely and to just be like, oh, I'll do whatever I want every day. And I'm just this free flowing being. It's so easy to stay in the present moment if you're like that. And I had a phase where I did that, and I was very happy, but it's not super applicable to present day modern Western society. And so shadow work, I think, helped me accept that I have an ego, that I have to market myself in some ways, which requires persuasion. It requires me to, nothing I say is untruthful, of course, but you have to talk and act a certain way to convince people of something. And I think I do that to some extent sometimes, and shadow work helped with me just accepting that and accepting that. I also have an angry side. I get pissed off sometimes, and I wanted to be the super stoic guy who doesn't let feelings control him. But sometimes I just accept it and kind of let it out some way by myself. I'll do it in a healthy way, which I think is really important. Sometimes if I need to scream, I'll scream by myself in my apartment.
Hell yeah.
I'll do that shit. Just other stuff. I mean, yeah, emotions like that we think, we shouldn't have, sadness and depression too. I don't suppress anything. I don't repress anything. And now I'm much more aware of when I am projecting with someone. So when I get really triggered at somebody for something they did, I take a step back. I'm like, how is this a reflection of me?
Yep.
Why is this triggering me so much? And so, yeah, that's all the ways that has helped.
I love it because I think a lot of people aren't even aware of what shadow work really is. And so we go through life, again, living through beliefs and paradigms that don't serve us, but we're not conscious enough of them to even recognize to make a change. And I know for you, like the first 20 years of your life, it was a lot of that, like that vicious cycle of going through the same emotions, same thoughts, same feelings. What was that first shift for you? Was it a book? Was it like, what happened for you to get into self-improvement and start making the life that you've been able to create today?
Yeah, I think it was around the start of sophomore year, or the halfway through sophomore year of college. I was getting into, like I said, spirituality, these Eastern philosophies and religions. And I came across a guy, specifically Ralph Smart. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he has since then, he's a little off the deep end for me with his types of videos.
Yeah.
Talking about controversial stuff and whatnot. But back then it was a lot of self-improvement related stuff, but self-improvement tied into spirituality. And that's when I really started to get into these things of I'm not my ego, meditation, being more present-minded.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of the first times that meditation really worked for me in college. I was in my dorm room, and right after I meditated, I like stood up and walked to my bathroom, and I was looking at the sink, and it looked so different to me. It felt so much more real, and I was like really here. I'm like, holy shit, I'm like really here. I'm not just in my head. Like, what's going on? Everything feels so much more present, so real, so alive. And yeah, that was one of those big realizations for me back then, was just spirituality and changing my perspective on things, realizing I could do that, because the whole idea of improving oneself, like, it didn't even occur to me really. I didn't even know what that meant before then. And then that eventually led me to the first self-improvement book I ever read, which was Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. And I'm so glad that was my first self-improvement book, because it's just like a summary of hundreds of podcasts he's done. And there's like split up into 3 sections, which were like body, mind, and finances or something like that. Yeah. It just had like everything. It was like everything you could need about self-improvement in one book, based on all of these people's ideas, all these incredible high-class performers and billionaires and other people's ideas. And at that point, I'm like, let's really dig into this. Like, I could really do something great with my life.
Yeah. That's so sick. That's so sick, because I haven't read that one yet, but I do know the concept of it. And first 2 books for me were Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was the same thing for me. It was like, wow, like there's another world. And I experienced the same thing for meditation as well. I woke up and I was like I'm looking at things, and they felt like I was like I could touch them. Like they were more tangible, if that makes sense. Like, cause you're always in your head. You're always thinking about what's next. You're thinking about so many different things. Mm-hmm. And when you're actually present in the moment, it's like life seems a little bit more just enjoyable when you're really here for it and you're able to meditate. Is there any other habits that have been like continuous things that you do on a daily basis that stick for you?
I think meditation's one of the biggest ones. I actually stopped journaling for quite a while now. But I would say at the start of anyone's improvement journey or trying to understand themselves, it's super important. Taking a walk in the morning after I meditate, just around my apartment complex. Mm-hmm. I mean, ever since I've done that, I feel like my sleep's improved. My energy throughout the day is improved. That very simple walk, because just getting sunlight in the morning outside,
huge.
Just being outside, it's so important for everything. Reading has obviously impacted me quite a lot, but nothing's taught me more wisdom than life. I think books can teach you knowledge, but experience gives you wisdom. And so the biggest lessons for me have just been life in general. You can do all these things and you can optimize your routine and read all these books, but you're really not going to know how to do something or how to deal with something until you actually go through it or do it.
Yeah. I really like that perspective because we can take it from, I grew up in upstate New York. I'm still here. I know you were there at one point as well, and you moved to Austin. What was that experience like, stepping into like it almost probably like a brand new chapter for you? Like YouTube's going well, you're stepping into something that probably is your dream to some capacity. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like, man?
Yeah, that was an absolute dream. It's been a dream since I've come here, honestly. It was super exciting. And that whole time period, the month before leaving, was one of the hardest times of my life I've ever gone through. I was incredibly burnt out starting probably in October or November. This is when I was putting out like 2 videos a week by myself without an editor. I don't know how, like, I think about that now. I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know. It wasn't sustainable, obviously, but because of that, my sleep was bad. I wasn't like going out and seeing people. I didn't go outside much. I was literally just working on the YouTube. And by then, I had momentum. I was almost at like 200,000 subscribers. And so all of that just piling up, actually making a decent amount of money. I just wanted to keep it going. And so I kept working and working. And then December, I remember early December, I visited Austin and I wanted to check it out. I heard good things about it. My friends talked about it. Well, one of my friends told me about it, really. And I'm like, let's check it out. Let's see if there's a potential place for me to move. And I remember on the way there, I was having like terrible anxiety, and I was like almost like falling asleep without wanting to fall asleep, in a way that it wasn't exhaustion in that way. It was like something is physically wrong with me. Yeah. Eventually, this burnout, this working way too much, it developed into physical symptoms where I would wake up in the middle of the night and have panic attacks and just bad anxiety throughout the day. I had to have like real anxiety attacks, which I never had in my life before, except for when I got too high smoking weed as a kid. That was another time those panic attacks would happen. Those are really scary. You basically feel like you're going to die.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So
I would wake up, have those. I'd have really bad sleep. And then it started developing into like this groin pain. I'm not going to get into the details. I don't think that's appropriate, but it was so scary. I thought like something was like seriously wrong with me. And so I had to go to like doctors, see what was going on, getting tested for certain things until I eventually figured it out. But before I figured it out, there was like one day in particular where I was like, I need to take a whole month off of YouTube. I don't even know if I don't know what to do going forward in the future. And by this point, I had decided to move to Austin. And so that was giving me a bit of anxiety too. So I was like, I need to take a month off of YouTube before I make this big move, before I consider the possibilities of the future. And right when that month started, I was like, let me figure this out. And the way that I usually like figured out really stressful times like that, where I'm confused and I need to get a deeper understanding of things, is by taking psychedelics, which I've done throughout my life. And I remember I went to my friend's house, picked up, I don't know how much, it was like a couple grams of shrooms, and I just hadn't eaten that day. It was like 4 p.m. And I decided to take them in my apartment alone, just like lay down, figure this out. And it was the first time I ever had like a bad trip. Like I didn't know, it didn't help me figure anything out. If anything, it just made me more anxious. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to do YouTube anymore.
Wow.
Like right after getting the success, I'm like, there's so many eyes on me. It's such a big responsibility. That's what I was saying to myself over and over. It's like, I can't deal with all this attention. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want this life. I kept saying that over and over. And I was really convinced of that. And eventually led me to have like a full-on mental breakdown that day. And after that, I took that whole month to really recover, to start figuring out what was going on with my body. I eventually did, which it was like chronic prostatitis, I think it's called. And basically you just have to rest more, do different yoga poses that help open up your hips. A lot of hip opening poses I started doing, and dialing it back with lifting weights, because that was really stressing my body. That is very stress. I mean, it is stress relief in a way, but it's also like physically taxing your body.
Attention.
Yeah, it took a lot of time to rest, recover, reflect on what the hell was going on. Why was I thinking this way? And I realized that after all that, it was like, no, dude, like you were just outrageously burnt out and stressed. So you thought you couldn't handle this. And so finally, by the end of the month, a few days before I was going to leave to start driving down to Austin, I remember writing in my journal, like, this is like the first day in a whole month that I've genuinely felt like good throughout the day. And I was so happy with the progress, and I was realigned. I was ready to go down to Austin and get this shit started and see where it took me. So I drove down there and immediately just felt better. Just like this was where I needed to be at that point. I really exhausted my stay in Buffalo. The videos that I was making when I first got there, trying to make friends there and stuff, it was super fun. The weather's so great. The people here are very high energy, very nice. Everyone's trying to do something, a lot of young people. And eventually found my now girlfriend here as well. Like even a month into, it was like a month into being here. So we've been together for quite a while. So everything here, since I've gone here, it's just, I felt so aligned with the purpose, a lot of growth here. And it's that whole month before, it really taught me a lot, taught me a big lesson about how I need to go forward to make YouTube sustainable. So I never reached that point again. And that's the story of getting here.
Dude. Wow. A lot deeper than I was expecting. That's insane, man. Knowing that, I mean, I find in every like point in time where it's a low, there's a lesson. And like in that point, obviously there's a lesson. How did that change your relationship with YouTube? And then also like moving forward about burnout. I mean, I know for me, for a lot of people, when you start a business or start like creating in that aspect, you feel like if you're not putting out so much at every opportunity you have, like you're falling behind in some capacity. So like, how did that relationship kind of shift for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was the point where I'm like, I need to hire a video editor. And so I loved video editing. And one of my biggest weaknesses is I hate the idea of not doing something of my content. I feel like I can do it the best, right? Which was obviously not true. And I don't want to let it go and have to direct somebody. You know, I've never felt like I'm an entrepreneur where I'm trying to scale a business. I don't like the idea of that. Yeah. So I was like, it doesn't matter. I need to hire an editor. There's no way I can continue doing the same work output and have it be sustainable. So that also happened like a month into coming to Austin, is I finally hired an editor. He's been incredible at replicating my style of editing. And so, yeah, just that I had to delegate. That was one thing I had to delegate. And now with YouTube, I'm only posting once a week, which is, I think, the perfect amount for me with
the value,
how much I want to put into each video, the quality I want to have with each video, as well as what I think I'm capable of. Yeah, my life isn't just so revolved around making it on YouTube and being huge on YouTube. My girlfriend has definitely helped with that as well. Just having friends here as well. It's just some other things to focus on. Yeah, I think other ways my relationship has changed. I don't know. I'm still quite attached to it. It's just, yeah, everything's just scaled back a bit. I don't think I need to post as much as I need to. And if I want to, just hire another person to do what I want to do. I'm still editing like at least half of my actually, I don't know. It's like a third of my videos, but everything I'm just doing now is scaled back to enjoy life more outside of YouTube and really prioritize sleep, prioritize recovery. Even working out, I don't lift weights 6 days a week anymore. It's more like 4 days a week. Everything's been more laxed, optimized for recovery. And a question I think about a lot is, would I have made it to the level I'm at now if I had just, done this recovery, like proper recovery, and had not pushed myself so hard? I don't know. But it's like, that's something. What do you tell people to people who aren't at the level where they want to be at yet, who want to reach success? It's like, should I really tell them to do what I did? I think I learned a valuable lesson to never do that. I don't think people should do that. Even if you're obsessed with something, you got to give yourself time to recover. So, yeah.
That's literally the question I was going to ask, is like, what would you say? Because
right.
It's tough to do that, because I mean, we all go through seasons of our life, right? And then a question James Clear asked, I bring this up like every day, is a question is, what are you optimizing for, right? And like we're in seasons of our life where at one point in your life, you were optimizing for growth, you were optimizing for monetary gain, like that kind of aspect of things.
Right.
It's hard not to attach yourself to that. And I know the middle way was a part of that as well, is like detaching from working and always needing to work, but like finding that lazy way of continuously moving forward anyway. What was your mission for the book when it first came out?
The book, so it was basically just a compilation of everything I learned in my self-improvement journey so far, with the overarching theme being take more time to do nothing, or just do things outside of work that help you to improve your workability. So, actually doing genuinely nothing, whether that's meditating or just like sitting, just observing, I think was a big part of that. Yeah, that's the overarching thing from that book, is take more time to do lazy things, but not the lazy where you're just scrolling mindlessly, but where you're reflecting or creating something. Like doodling has been shown to be really effective for increasing creativity and just kind of easing the mind and getting into a good flow state. I personally love drawing. I just never do it. And I always find that it really helps me just get into a flow state and be more creative. So yeah, that book's main purpose was just like teaching people everything I had learned, how to push yourself, but not to the point of total exhaustion like I had reached right before I came to Austin.
I bring that up because it's funny how that works. When you wrote that in 2020, right? When COVID was happening.
Yeah.
You wrote that, and it's like almost a memoir to yourself. Like,
yep. I say all the time, like, damn, I should really take my own advice sometimes.
It's so funny how that works.
Yeah.
You and then you realize that years later.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yep. Yeah. I frequently have to remind myself of some things throughout my life. And a lot of, just for people to understand, is a lot of these self-improvement guys are not taking their own advice and are fucking up sometimes. They're just as human as you are. So
every single one of them, And I'm curious for you based on that, because I find, right, there's the consistency, there's the relentless action that you've taken. Like, you've been at it for so long, that delusional optimism, but like, what are the less obvious reasons that you found success?
The less obvious reasons. I think there's a bit of luck involved. I think, well, what happened with my YouTube was what made it snowball is it was around June, July of 2020, and I had made a video, NoFap plus cold showers plus journaling for 90 days. And right once I put that video out, it did quite well. Like, it did above average on my channel, but my channel during that time was like vegan fitness.
Yeah.
Primarily. And so it went on like that for a few months until October hit, right before No Nut November, where those topics are really trending.
Yeah.
And once that hit, the algorithm picked it up because a lot of people were searching for that type of content. And that video just blew up and started snowballing my channel. And I didn't plan, oh, let's put out a no-fap video near No Nut November. It was just kind of a pure, it's finally my time after 3 years. Is YouTube's finally going to start pushing out my videos. And that's when I started doubling down on self-improvement content, because it seemed like, that's what the algorithm wants to see. So with that, there's luck involved in that, but something else I just thought of is, I think with YouTube, you should experiment with many different types of content within your niche, like stuff you actually want to make, but experiment with different lengths, different titles, thumbnails, and different topics. Mm-hmm. And eventually one's going to hit harder than the others. And like, the algorithm's basically going to decide for you, like, hey, you should make these types of videos because people like these types of videos. Yeah. And in that way, I didn't really even choose my niche, because that's kind of what happened to me. And I'm super grateful it was self-improvement, and that it was something positive that could actually make a positive impact. And that's what I think should really be most important, is like, are you making people feel better after they watch your content? I was lucky with that. So with YouTube, yeah, people should try a lot of different things. Eventually something's going to stick more than the others, and you basically just double down on that for a while. And you can do that, and you'll probably get tired of it or upset with it or even annoyed with it in a way, like I was with NoFap. I remember one of my sister's friends texted her, this guy, I have no idea who he is. And she was talking about me to him, and the guy said, oh, is that the NoFap guy on YouTube? I'm like, I don't want to be known as the NoFap guy anymore. I don't want to be in that community. Yeah. So eventually you can work out of that. You might lose some viewership at the start, or like subscribers at the start, because they were just subscribed to you for that. But if you've already been making a lot of content like that, like there will be people who will really stick with you, even if you broaden out from that specific topic, which is what I did. And luckily, a lot of people stayed with me, and now I can make so many different types of topics and have most of them do at least decent.
Yeah, you have to start niche to some capacity.
Yeah.
And then once those people follow along and they don't attach to the niche itself, but more to the person that's creating it.
Exactly.
Then you're able to expand, because people are not attached to actually the niche or what you're talking about, but more so how you explain it. Like I said earlier, like your storytelling ability is amazing. So going into that in itself is like, okay, I'm watching half, it might as well finish the whole thing. So it's like, it's not even about that. So I like that. And I think part of that too, not even just YouTube, but in life, I find consistency is great. But if you're not strategically consistent, it's not going to matter that much, right? Like if you're not consistent in the way that you're not trying different things, you can do the same thing and expect a new result and get no new result. It's like just doing the insanity kind of aspect of things, right? This might be a step in a weird direction, but okay. I know that in the morning, meditation for you is on the toilet. Yes. And I want to know, outside of that, is there any other habits that you stack together that have been maybe outside of the norm, or just something that you do that maybe helps you optimize your time a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw you in Danny Miranda's comments. I figured
a podcast with him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Amazing guy, by the way. So he's
love Danny.
He is so made for podcasting. Like, he's just, I don't know. That's one of those guys where I'm like, God put him here to be a podcaster.
I
And
bet on him for sure.
yeah, yeah. So things I stack. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, I luckily have a pool side here in my apartment complex, and when I tan, I usually bring a book. So I'm getting two things done at once, or I'm working on something on my phone, which is great. Think of other things. I mean, I'll meditate also in bed right before I go to bed. So it kind of primes me for bed.
Right.
Other things, unconventional, unusual. I don't know, but I do have that mentality of like trying to check off two things at once with certain habits or actions, but I can't think of anything else.
No, I'm the same way. That's why I wanted to ask that, because when I heard that on Danny's podcast, I was like, I've never once heard that in my entire life.
That's funny.
Wow. Like, I really made me think about things. I was like, man, what can I do that can I optimize for that? That's really crazy.
Right.
The last question I ask every guest is one that it really encapsulates what I'm trying to do with this podcast. Like I said earlier, I think life's more about unlearning than it is learning. So I'm curious for you, in the season of life that you're in now, what belief are you currently unlearning?
I think for me, it would be the belief that like if I don't hit a deadline, or if I'm not doing this, and this, whatever that is on this day, doing at least this much today. Yeah. If I'm not doing at least this much today or hitting this deadline today, then it's a wasted day. Then it's a bad day. That's a shit day. So I think if I enjoyed that day, no matter what I did, I think that's a win, is what I'm trying to convince myself.
Yeah. It's definitely tough for high achievers to get to overachievers too, as well. I mean, it's hard to unlearn that belief and detach ourselves from it. And that was the question I was going to ask, is how are you managing that balance of striving and then also surrendering, right? Like we're always striving. It's our innate responses to do so.
Yes. I think that is a constant work in progress, no matter how far you get, but it's the one question everybody needs to consider is like, how do you be content with right now while also striving for more? And I don't think I'll ever fully figure out the answer, but it's certainly been easier for me to find the balance over time through fucking up. Like that month before I came to Austin, I think that helped a lot. I think the answer is different for everybody,
of course,
but for me, there's some, like, now that I've honed my intuition to a certain level, it's like I know when my mind is completely exhausted, and I know if I do one more hour of work, I'm gonna not be able to perform as well the next day. If I do this much exercise, I'm probably gonna have to take several days off instead of just one day off. So yeah, knowing that, and then just taking time every day to just be like, to just shift to the mindset really quick. Obviously being present minded, but just like, what are you in a rush for? What is it you're really trying to get to in your life? Is it okay if you never reach your absolute highest potential? Because yeah, everybody wants to get there, but like, what if you don't? Have you ever considered that? And is it okay having an average day? Is it okay just chilling and enjoying what I have here right now, and telling myself, this whole life experience is temporary. Eventually we'll all be dust. Just enjoy what you're doing right now. It's okay if you don't, having some sort of a little bit of positive nihilism, a little bit of like, oh, this doesn't really matter. Yeah. And that's great. That's great that it doesn't matter. It's actually like I'm not performing for some higher intelligent being for some sort of judgment that's going to be cast upon me when I die. It's like, no, it's okay. It's like, I can just chill out. and not always having that mindset, but when it's appropriate and when I need to, I'll just apply it.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
That's exactly why I asked that question, because I think most people are trying to unlearn that. Your audience specifically, I feel like will resonate a whole lot with what you just said right there. When I'm curious, when's the last time that you did take a day to, I'm not working whatsoever?
No work? It's a good question. It's probably within the past few weekends. Well, actually, Saturdays, pretty much this is something that I've incorporated thanks to my girlfriend, is every Saturday I pretty much do no work, usually, in terms of content creation. Sometimes I'll go to the gym that day. But usually that whole day is just dedicated to my relationship. And we just hang out and do things. And it makes me just forget about YouTube, forget about the grind for a second, and just enjoy spending time with my girlfriend. And yeah, those days are nice. Definitely.
Yeah, man, it's a constant practice. We're always trying to reinforce is that balance between I'm striving towards this, my fullest potential. And then I'm also, what if I don't make it to tomorrow? Why always be in a rush? Like you said, we have to surrender to where we are. It's one of the hardest things to go through. But Cole, I'm so appreciative to have you on the podcast, man. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. You are an incredible 19-year-old. I see you going a very long way. Very intelligent, very well spoken. I'm just really impressed because at 19 years old, I was still getting drunk every weekend. So I'm sure you'll go a long way. I'm excited to see.
YouTube will be in the channel or in the show notes, but where can they find you, Cole? Yeah,
so my YouTube's just my name, Cole Hastings. You can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Cole Hastings _. And then sometimes I post on Twitter just randomly, quotes and whatnot, things I've been thinking about. And that's Cole Hastings with 2 S's at the end. And then if you want to join Self-Mastery course, which is my course, which has like a group with it, and we do group video calls, which has been really fun. That's on my website. It's just colehastings.com/self-mastery.